Marijuana is more available to young people today than alcohol and tobacco. So if the goal was to limit availability, that hasn't worked.
Dr. Evan Wood is no pothead by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, he would prefer to see fewer people smoking weed. Regulate it and tax it to death, much like cigarettes or alcohol, is part of his message. But the biggest concern is crime, the crime that comes with pot prohibition.
Grow ops, home invasions, hydro thefts, gang violence.
And Dr. Wood has high friends in high places. Since co-founding Stop the Violence BC, he's managed to convince some heavy hitters in the political scene to speak out against marijuana prohibition, including 4 former BC Attorney Generals, like Jeff Plante and Ujjal Deschange. A call that Premier Christy Clark brushed off as a federal issue, a call that NDP leader Adrian Dix chose to ignore. But the support is growing, most notably from a cop from Victoria named David Bratzer, seen here appearing before a Senate committee on the controversial Bill C-15 that calls for mandatory sentences for marijuana offenses.
I have come to the conclusion that Canadian law enforcement agencies are obsessed with chasing drugs.
But Bratzer and Dr. Wood want to make it clear they are not calling for the decriminalization of marijuana. They say decriminalization would simply open another window for organized crime. Off the record, Wood says the momentum on regulating marijuana is growing.
We think there's a better way, and we think that the strict regulation of marijuana under a public health framework could not only channel hundreds of millions of dollars from organized crime to governments in the form of tax revenue, but it actually could reduce rates of marijuana use in the same way that the strict regulation of tobacco has resulted in reduced rates of use.
Wood says his message is simple: regulate the marijuana industry now, otherwise the gangs who use marijuana as currency to buy and import cocaine and guns will continue to flourish. And he's convinced that the pendulum has swung to the point of no return.
Oh yeah, I mean, we've been to Victoria and had private discussions with MLAs, and off the record, the support for what we're doing is overwhelming.
The marijuana industry in BC alone is set to be worth more than $7 billion. According to Stop Violence BC, nearly 70% of those polled agree that the war against marijuana is ineffective and that the province would be better off taxing and regulating the weed. Kelly Hayes, Castanet Media.